Chinese autofocus lenses, they are becoming a really big thing nowadays that I'm starting to see even working professionals purchase and use them in their workflow. It is no longer just a hobbyist or a freelancer thing like me. And I believe this is just the beginning because things could get even bigger in the next 2 or 3 years where Viltrox, currently the leader of third-party Chinese brands in my opinion, is going to get a lot better. However, there are still quite a number of problems associated with Chinese brands which I wish to discuss with you guys over here. And by no means I'm degrading Chinese brands. In fact, I'm planning to review a lot of Chinese lenses going forward because they are so affordable, and if I don't need it anymore, I can sell it, or I can just buy a used copy in the first place and save even more. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from Kurogane Photos, and today I wish to share my opinions with everyone and discuss about third-party Chinese autofocus lenses specifically, where I'm seeing 3 major problems with Chinese AF lenses which I wish can be fixed or improved within the next couple of years maybe, if that is even possible. And one of the problems that is not a problem in my opinion, I wish to make that clear right now, is that image quality, I'm not seeing any problems to be honest. Yes, they are not as sharp as Sony GM or Nikon S line or Canon L series, whatever high-end lenses you can think of. They are not even as good as the best Tamron and Sigma lenses, but that is okay because as long as the prices reflect that, they are meant to be at the budget level. I have no problems with that. I am all about making photography more accessible for more people. So with that out of the way, AF performance and also image quality, the biggest problem I'm seeing right now is that Chinese lenses are just flooding the market with duplicate products. So we look at these 4 focal lengths, 24, 35, 50, 85. How many of them are there right now? I did not bother to check how many of them are available for Sony E mount, but I can imagine there would be at least 30 or 40 different 85mm prime lenses ranging from f2 all the way to f1.4. The same thing can be said to for 35mm and to a slightly lesser extent 50mm as well. And 24mm is a lot less, but there's still quite a number to choose from. The same thing applies to crop sensor lenses, 16, 23, 33 and 56mm. So many of them between f1.8 to f1.2 even. And once they are done manufacturing or releasing these 4 lenses, these 4 focal lengths for APS-C and full frame, the 24 to 85 range, they repeat the whole cycle but with a different aperture value. If they have made 1.8 before, now they do 1.4. Oh, we are done with both 1.8 and 1.4. What do we do next? We repeat the same thing again but Mark II, slightly improved. More choices is always a good thing. I feel bad for Canon RF users really. But there is a point where there is way too many. It is confusing photographers or consumers in general, and then sometimes we waste so much time researching which one is a better purchase, things like that. So I feel like there are too many duplicate lenses out there, and I know that they are trying to play it safe because these 4 focal lengths, they are more likely to sell in greater numbers, so everyone is playing it safe when they are lacking experience in making lenses. But at this point, it feels like there are way too many of them. Where are the ultra-wide angle primes? I mean, yes, Viltrox has a 16mm f1.8 for full frame. That is an amazing lens. They have a 13 1.4 for APS-C, but that is around 20-21mm equivalent. Slightly ultra-wide, but where are lenses wider than 20mm full frame equivalent? I saw Yongnuo coming up with an 18mm 1.8 soon, full frame, which is amazing. I would love to see more lenses like this, anywhere between 12 to 18mm full frame prime lenses, be it 1.8 or 1.4. Yes, Laowa is the only exception to this complaint of mine. They are making very niche, very unique stuff. Ultra-wide lenses, 10 or 12mm primes, and there are rumors, more like leaks, of them coming up with a 200mm f2 prime That is incredible. That is what I want to see from Chinese brands. Where is the 100mm portrait prime or 135? We only have one so far, the Viltrox Lab. Yes. So we need more lenses that are not within the 20 to 85 range. Even for 20mm full frame, we only have one choice so far among the Chinese brands, Viltrox 20 2.8L. Where are the 1.8 and 1.4s? So I would love to see those, to be honest. And one more thing is that outside of these 4 focal lengths 24 to 85, I would like to see autofocus macros. It can be Laowa. I think Laowa is the #1 candidate to make it possible. Autofocus macros at any focal length, but preferably between 60 to 150mm. I would love to see those in AF from Chinese brands, because macro lenses are something that is really lacking in choices even from third parties. Native macro lenses from Sony, Canon or Nikon, they are between $900 to $1,300 and the cheapest macro so far for mirrorless cameras would be the one by Tamron, the 92.8, roughly $600 I think. So I think there is an obvious gap over there for Chinese lenses to fill in. Autofocus macro lenses that are between maybe 80 to 105mm range. Yeah, give us a macro lens at this range at maybe $400, $500 if it is possible. Yeah, that would be amazing for photographers at a lower budget. Though maybe there is some technical difficulty with engineering an autofocus macro, which the Chinese brands are unable to do it yet. And the same thing can be said for zoom lenses. Where are the zooms? Yeah, give us a 24-70 2.8 at $600 maybe. You can get the Tamron G1 2875 used or pre-owned at around $500, sure, but more choices would be welcome, and I want something starting from 24 instead of 28. Yeah, so this is the first problem, duplicate lenses everywhere. The second major problem, minimum focusing distance. So while I mentioned earlier that optical performance is not the biggest issue over here, minimum focusing distance is a big problem, because if there is one common thing I'm seeing with almost every Chinese lens out there, every prime lens regardless of focal length, regardless of brand, around 90% of them, that would be a very long MFD, minimum focusing distance. So a 50mm prime normally has a MFD of around 40 cm, plus minus 5 cm. Yeah, usually it is around 40 cm, sometimes less than that, 35 cm. So you get a magnification ratio of 0.15 to 0.18 times maximum. That is good enough, 0.15 to 0.18. But most Chinese prime lenses have a maximum magnification of 0.1 times what the heck. For example, a 35mm prime, but the MFD is like 50 cm. I couldn't even get close to a cat, not to mention a flower or any smaller objects. So it is really restrictive. I feel very limited by the lens whenever I use or try a Chinese lens. I couldn't focus close at all. Though this is starting to change, I'm seeing Viltrox with some of their newer lenses. For example, that 135 lab lens can focus so much closer. I believe the MFD is like 80 centimeters. So the magnification is excellent for close-up photography. So this is what I want to see from every Chinese brand regardless of the price point. Granted, the 135 lab is an expensive lens by Chinese lens standards, so I wonder if it is an issue of cost, but at the same time, a Canon Nifty 50 can focus a lot closer than any Chinese 50mm lens. Yeah, so I don't think it is a matter of cost either. 0.15 times to 0.2 times magnification is more than good enough, but 0.1 times is really bad. Speaking of the 135mm lab lens by Viltrox, this is where the third problem is when it comes to Chinese brands, and this is the biggest problem among the three. Customer support and warranty and repairs, yes. So I would argue that if you're buying a budget lens that costs $200, $300, and if that thing breaks outside of the warranty period, you just throw it in the recycle bin and buy a new one or buy a used one, because the repair cost, assuming it is even possible to repair it, it is going to exceed the price of a used copy of the same lens or even a new one, because labor charges, right? Even if the individual parts in the lens are cheap to replace, there is the problem of labor cost, because you need a lot of expertise to repair camera gear. So there is no point repairing a low budget lens that costs under $500 actually. But when we are talking about more premium lenses, especially when we are going over $800, then those are lenses where you may want to keep in the long term because it is a major investment. And if there is something wrong with the lens and it is repairable, you will want the lens to be fixed by a professional. And this is where the problem is, because has anyone seen a Viltrox service center in a country where they actually repair lenses? Because I don't think such a thing exists. So in the past, when Viltrox were making low budget lenses, no repair service, that is fine. But now they are starting to push out professional level gear. Then we are looking at the need for repair services, and that is virtually non-existent for every Chinese brand out there. So these are the three biggest problems I see with Chinese lenses, which I would like to see some improvements. And having said that, I also have my own Chinese lens wish list, which if money is no object, or I don't have any other priorities, I would go out and buy them. So what is my wish list when it comes to Chinese lenses? The first one would be a full frame 85mm, ironically, because a full frame 85mm is something probably everyone with a camera has nowadays, especially the full frame shooters, right? Because there are so many choices out there and they are kind of affordable. Maker or Viltrox has 85 1.8 at around $300 to $400. Used can get it for $200. However, the problem I have is that I want a 1.4. And if we narrow down to f1.4 85mm, then we only have 3 or 4 choices so far. For Sony E mount at least, we have the Maker 85 1.4, which is the weakest amongst all of them. And then there is the Case 85 1.4. The Chinese name of this brand is actually pronounced as Castle. It is not Case, but Castle sounds weird in English, so I'll call it Case. So Case 85 1.4 is a very new lens that just came out a month or two ago. I kind of really wanted it because of the features like the magnetic filtering in front, but it hasn't been very convincing. When I saw the reviews from Dustin Abbott or Chris Frost, quality control issues everywhere, even if those were early samples and prototypes. Yeah, it does not induce confidence, unfortunately. And then there is the Viltrox 85 1.4 Pro, which currently is only available for Sony E mount, but I do think a Z mount version is coming soon. And assuming that the Z mount version is available, then I would have a hard time choosing between the Case and the Viltrox version. And before I forget, the fourth option is Sirui 85 1.4, which many of my friends really liked because it is the opposite of being highly clinical. Not a very sharp lens, but you get low contrast, you get this soft glow or flare, right? It is like a vintage lens, and some people really liked it for portraits or even street photography. But anyways, I think I'm down to between Case and Viltrox for 85 1.4. For every other focal length, if they can give me a lens that the image quality is somewhat decent, I would go for it. I think Viltrox 16mm 1.8 Pro is also high on my want list after an 85. So that is mostly my main wish list for Chinese lenses. Not many, but there are at least 3 or 4 lenses in mind which I want from a Chinese brand. So do you purchase Chinese lenses? If yes, what do you own? Let me know down in the comments below. And what are your experiences? Yeah, share it with me down in the comments below. I always welcome low budget lenses, even if the optical quality is slightly compromised because photography is getting way too expensive. Sony A7 III was $2,000, A7 IV $2,500, and then I wouldn't be surprised if A7 V is closer to $3,000. Yes. So low budget lenses are as important as ever by today with all the inflation going on. But when we talk about premium lenses, that is a whole different story. It is not just about optical performance anymore. Yeah, we need customer service and repair services. So until then, I hope that you found this video, informative or enlightening. And if you have a few additional points to add in on what your concerns are with Chinese lenses, yes, please do drop them in the comments below. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.